And okay, so joining me in this lockdown series today is none other than Jamil. Man, I'm really honored to have you on. I've been following you for quite some time now, and your work with Coffee and Chokes, and also the fact that you're also a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, it's because it's a big step for me, because I've only been practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for I think 8 months now. So I'm only a white belt with 1 stripe. So I mean, and I'm not gonna lie, this whole lockdown did do me dirty a little bit, because I was building up to like good 4 solid to 5 sessions a week. Yeah. And now it's going to be 0 for a while.
Oh, it's going to be 0 for everyone pretty much. But you're doing good, man, because I've seen you around at the UFC gym as well, because I've got a membership there still. I've seen you on the mats before, and you doing your thing, coaching. So it was really cool, because I found you on Instagram. I said, I've seen this guy before. And then, I've been following your work as well. Even, all the budget smuggler pics. I'm like, sweet, go for gold, dude. So, I've been following him as well. So, a real big fan. Mitchell.
Appreciate it, man. Dude. So let's start off by just wanted to ask you, man, how long have you been practicing BJJ for?
I would have started in 2013, because that was the first time I had a full-time job. So once I had a full-time job, I was able to work, and once I had the cash in flow, I could finally start joining a gym and training for lessons and all that whatnot. But still going strong to this day. My focus now is just train as much as I can and put as much content and linking up as much gyms and as much coaches as much as I can for the Perth community out there, because the Perth community is getting quite big, and there's quite a really good loyal following for guys and girls that want to train and do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and other martial arts. So it's really cool to see what's happening in Perth.
Yeah, I actually definitely agree. I had no idea how big the scene was until I started. Not even that, but I love the fact that how many gyms in Perth are actually teaching it and practice it and holding competitions for it. Like, I had my first competition at the AMA with the white belt only round robin, and I was completely overwhelmed. I was like, I had no idea there was actually just a white belt only competition. Not even that, but the amount of people that enter in those competitions was pretty phenomenal. Whereabouts?
Yeah, the big tournaments, the white belt ones, even though it's just white belts only, they draw out the biggest crowds. That's the time when, let's say, you first start training, you bring your family to come see you, your friends come to see you, your teammates that you've been training, they come to see you. So it always draws big crowds, because that's one of those, monumental events, because it's your first time competing. And obviously, being a first time competitor, that's something that's, quite special for friends, family, and teammates. So that's why they're still big events, even though it's like white belts only. So, but they're really, really cool to see, especially the ones that Amber's doing. They're running a really good show.
Yeah, they got something really special going on down there. Now, I wanted to actually ask you, because I brought up my first time competing. Do you remember your first competition? What was that like?
Well, funny enough, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I don't actually compete in BJJ at all, because I'm too busy promoting. During my time from white to brown, the competitions were always on a Sunday, and I was never free on a Sunday because I was a musician at the time, so I was always playing music. These days, if I do compete, it would be in freestyle wrestling. So American Freestyle Wrestling is the main one that I usually jump in. The next big one's going to be in the middle of the year, so I'm training to jump in to the next freestyle wrestling comp. This time, I'm going to try and compete at 59 kilos, which is a bit of a cut for me. I usually compete at 65 kilos for wrestling, but this time I'm going to jump in 59. But same as wrestling or jiu-jitsu, both still grappling sports, and both tournaments, you're still getting that adrenaline rush, and you're still performing under the pump and under the crowd. So, jiu-jitsu I don't really compete in. Possibly I might jump to one this year, the SGT, but wrestling, that's usually where I feel I get my drive and my ambition to compete in freestyle wrestling.
So tell me a little bit about this freestyle wrestling for someone who doesn't really know anything about it. Like, what's the difference between freestyle wrestling and the other forms of wrestling?
Well, the other form of wrestling most people would know will probably be pro wrestling. I'm a big pro wrestling fan. That's stuff like your WWE, your wrestling, the stuff you see on TV. Compared to, let's say, freestyle wrestling, that is the actual sports or pure based wrestling itself. Really big in America, really big in Europe, like in Russia and Ukraine, especially the base sport where Khabib Nurmagomedov, learned his fighting. That's where he got his start. Everyone knows Khabib, and Khabib always cites that he's a wrestler through and through. Most majority of the fighters in the UFC, especially being an American production, a lot of American fighters, they all got their competitive start in wrestling, especially freestyle wrestling. So with freestyle wrestling, it's basically just another form of grappling, but with no submissions. The main idea and the main objective with wrestling is to pin your opponent, both shoulders on the mat, or to earn enough points while in the match, whether it's a takedown, a roll, or even like taking the back, or getting as much points as you can under wrestling rules. So basically, wrestling is basically grappling, but big emphasis on taking the opponent down and starting from standing.
Okay. So from someone who also practices BJJ, what benefit has doing wrestling also helped you as a BJJ practitioner?
Well, of course, with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, majority of the time you spend doing Jiu-Jitsu is on the ground.
Yeah.
And there's two ways that you need to start a Jiu-Jitsu match to get to the ground. Either one person pulls guard, they get to the ground first, or the other person will initiate a takedown.
Yeah.
Now, depending on the rule set, some tournaments you will get points if you perform a takedown on your opponent. Some tournaments, it doesn't matter if you do a takedown. For the submission only ones, like the ones that Emma do, SCT. Those ones, you don't really have to do a takedown because basically whoever submits the other person first, you don't get any points. But there's some tournaments, for example, let's say you've got 4 points for your name and the other guy has 4 points to his name. Let's say there's 20 seconds less on the clock. If one person gets one takedown and he earns that 4 points before the timer runs out, he will be declared the winner. That's when it gets really useful to know how to do a takedown on a person and to bring the fight to the ground. Or if we're talking in a street fight kind of point of view, if you want to use your grappling in your jiu-jitsu, you want to take the ground. In a street fight, not many people will be willing to pull guard or to line the back. Rather, if you want to take the ground, you got to know at least one takedown, take it to the ground, use jiu-jitsu, get the armbar, get the choke. But as a grappler for jiu-jitsu, learning how to take someone down and bring him down to the floor is very useful because that's where basically the art of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu starts. There's a really good saying that a friend of mine, her name's Amy Toes, she just won gold at the last wrestling tournament over East. Jiu-Jitsu starts when wrestling ends, and that's really, really true because you can't do Jiu-Jitsu until you hit the ground, and that's why you need to learn how to wrestle and you need to learn how to do takedowns.
Awesome. Very nice, man. Now, you run Coffee and Chokes, which is your little podcast that you got going on. Can you just tell the audience like what it is that you're doing and why it is you're doing this? Yeah.
So basically, Coffee and Chokes, the story behind that is that used to be my Instagram handle name.
Oh,
after a while, when I was going around the gyms, people were like, oh, that's a Coffee and Chokes guy. Oh, it's Coffee and Chokes. But no one knew what my name was, so I changed it to my name so people can identify my name with a handle. So when I started making more podcasts, that wasn't actually the name I went for, Coffee and Chokes. So basically, when I do the podcast, I go to a particular gym. Doesn't have to be my gym. I find a guest, and I'll roll that gym, roll that coach. After he's basically beating me up, I'll sit down with him, speak to the coach, and ask him, hey, what are the values of this gym? Why do you love Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu? What are your thoughts about this? What are your thoughts about this move? What are your thoughts about this tournament? So my goal really is to give as much people in the Perth community and also in the sporting and fitness community of what Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms are out there, what coaches are around, what moves can do, what gyms are accessible, who's around, what's around, and just to give a nice, big, broad, open view to the Perth community what's out there in the sport of jiu-jitsu and martial arts in general. So I basically go around to the rooms, meet with the coach, have a chat with them. All the podcasts are platformed by Instagram. So I chose my platform to be shown by Instagram, IGTV. So all videos are about 10 to 15 minutes long, nice and sharp, straight to the point. You can go to your Instagram app. The videos are all right there and watch it through, your regular Instagram feed. And it was just really, really easy to do it that way. And really, it was easy to link up with the coach and put the coach's gym name and his tag in the video as well. So that's basically what the Coffee and Chokes podcast is. Me traveling around, getting as much wisdom from these coaches and gyms and putting it out there, the content, to the wider fitness community here in Perth.
That's really good. That's really good, man. I appreciate it. It's good that you're doing that to help promote the sport. So you've been doing it for a bit of time. You've had quite a few guests. About a year. Yeah. So who would you say was the biggest guest that you've had, or at least the most high profile guest you've ever had?
I think, funny you say, I think the highest profile guest is the one I'm going to have after I finish my chat with you.
Oh, really? That's good.
So tonight will be something very different. We're going to do an Instagram live call with a guy named Adam Jones. So Adam Jones his brother is Craig Jones. Craig Jones is like the biggest name in Australian wrestling. Everyone knows Craig Jones. Him next to Gordon Ryan are the two most talked about guys in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu right now. So today I'm going to talk to Craig's brother, Adam Jones. He's also a very accomplished wrestler. He's looking after and creating one of the biggest tournaments in Australia right now, the M16 Open. So I'm going to have a chat with Adam, talk about his journey with Jiu-Jitsu, what it was like growing up with Craig Jones, what he had to do to make a tournament of your own, and what he wants to do with his Jiu-Jitsu journey as well. So Adam Jones is the current biggest high-profile and most anticipated name I'm going to have a chat with. But in the Perth scene, the Perth level guys, I think every person that I've interviewed has a really high caliber level of respect in the community. So you can't just pick one. All of my guests have been highly respected and highly sought after guests. Romel Lewistro, big name in the MMA scene. Justin Lee Berger, one of the all-time greats in BJJ in Perth. Jacob Disco, one of the most active competitors here in Perth and competing interstate. The list goes on. That's just the last three guys I had. So, That's
brilliant, man. Well done for you for doing that. So personally myself, I again, still new to the BJJ scene, so I'm just truly trying to understand who the players are. But I do know Craig Jones. I believe he's also on the Ultimate. They brought back the Ultimate Fighter, and I believe he's competing on this season. So
he's on the coaching team. He's on the coaching team.
That's right. So I didn't know that he had any other experience as well outside of BJJ. I know he was a big competitor and all. Now, earlier on you brought up Gordon Ryan. Now, this is a little bit of old news, but there was that Gordon Ryan, that famous Gordon Ryan slap that was kind of heard around the BJJ world. And then people are talking, and there's a lot of controversy around him because he brings a lot of beef into the sport. Personally, I think what he's doing is brilliant. I think what he's doing is, because I've talked about my podcast before, but bad blood is so good for business. And at the end of the day, BJJ is now becoming a very global business. And what he's doing, setting up all this beef and talking all this shit, I think it's really good because it's going to bring more people to the sport. I just wanted to I know it's a little bit of old news, but I just wanted to hear your thoughts on what happened.
Yeah, especially how you said that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is now becoming global because people can see the marketing behind it, the business behind it. And Gordon Ryan really is one of the spearheads in changing that scene, because back in the day, Jiu-Jitsu was like a very underground kind of thing. There'd be a few tournaments here and there, but because of Gordon Ryan, he started the trend now of what he's doing is putting big, high-profile matches with big names. But not only that, the main thing that he's been trying to put across since day one is putting money into tournaments and putting money towards the competitors, especially in local scenes around the world. You have a tournament, have two best guys that compete, they get a medal. But Gordon Ryan was like, nah, for us as competitors, we need more than a medal. We need some sort of financial incentive for us to put our body on the line, the time we put in, for the effort we have to pay our coaches and our gyms. So basically, because of Gordon Ryan and many others, there's now a monopoly where people are willing to sponsor fighters financially, and people are now willing to sponsor tournaments and events financially. Mm-hmm. So now there's tournaments where to get a sponsor in, they ask sponsors to chip in $500, $1,000, $2,000 just to put their name and their logo on the tournament banner or brand. So, and that's what Gordon Ryan is like. He's hyped up the matches that he's in, but he's also bringing big money in for himself to compete in these matches, in these tournaments. And that's what he's done to change the game. And now a lot of other competitors are following in his footsteps and say, hey, if you want me to go on your card, compete in this tournament, I need to get paid. And that's really where the direction of Jiu-Jitsu is going right now, especially in tournaments. If you want to have a big tournament, you want to attract the best competitors and the best sponsors, I really do believe that paying your competitors is the next big thing, and to go if you want to make a tournament and make a big name for yourself. Is once you put money behind it, there's no limits of where a competitor's career can go and where the tournament can go, where that tournament can reach.
Yeah, that's definitely a big point really to bring up, because I can't really remember a time where the sport's ever gone this big. I can't remember. Oh, again, still new to it, so looking more. I can't. Yeah. Going back through the old videos, I'm not sure how much like competitors used to get paid back in the day, but I don't think there's ever been a time where they've ever been like paid so much. And now what we're seeing is Gordon Ryan's branching off into one championship. So it's going on to a complete like global scale.
Yeah, and they're billionaires, the one championship guys. The crew behind one championship, their stock belly is like through the roof of what one FC is worth. So they're huge in Asia, especially Malaysia as well. They're massive. They're bigger than the UFC in Asia, pretty much one. So it's a good move.
Well, it's not even just like BJJ practitioners as well, but also stars from other sports. Like just recently, Australian kickboxing legend John Wayne Parr had a fight over in one championship. Yeah. I can't remember specifically the name of the fellow that he fought.
Yeah, it was a Dutch dude. I can't remember the name as well. It's hard to pronounce. So yeah. I'm not surprised that no one can remember the name, but his name escaped as well. But he was versus some young Dutch dude in his prime. I think it was Dutch, or his coach was Dutch. But John Wayne Parr is a legend, and he basically, that match they did one FC was the Muay Thai, but with a 4-ounce MMA gloves.
Yeah,
that was really good to see, especially with John Wayne Parr, because he pretty much created that style of sport of Muay Thai in a cage with MMA gloves. John Wayne Parr was the first guy to do it and to make a promotion out of it. So it's really cool to see him do it.
It's crazy to see what one championship's actually doing, because we had a one championship fight on the podcast, Antonio Caruso. Yeah, and he actually talked about like the hydration tests and how much better they are rather than having to cut ridiculous amounts of weight. But on the other side, the issue with the hydration tests is it's kind of hard to take a fight on short notice, because you can't really, if you're supposed to be at a natural weight, you kind of can't manipulate your body as much as you used to. So you got to make sure you're always staying in shape. So there's still obviously there's a downside to it. Now, one other thing I wanted to bring up with you is recently we had the fight card, UFC 261, and one thing I actually, everyone, there were great knockouts, and we can go into that in a second. But one thing that absolutely stunned me was when we saw the first round single arm rear naked choke, which was actually done. I thought, what were your thoughts on that? Because I never even, how can you break down like how complex or how high level this particular move is?
Yeah, especially in training, I believe one arm rear naked chokes is definitely possible, but it's harder to. I think the reason why, especially that one that we saw on the fight card, he was able to pull it off, is that especially with chokes and strangulation submissions, they're so much more harder to get out of and so much more easy to tap when there's a lot of pressure upon you, especially when people are watching. So let's say you've got your back taking, a guy sticking in the choke, you've got cameras flashing, 1,000 people in the audience shouting, screaming, you've got the cameras on you, live via feed. When you've got that much pressure going on in your head internally, it's so much more harder to resist submissions when you know there's a lot going on the outside. That's why I believe the guy who managed to get that choke so good on that guy is basically because, you know, once you can choke someone in an environment where it's high pressure, high noise, it's very, the guy that's getting chokes, they'll tap a lot more easier because, like I said, there's so much more going on. There's the pressure and the noise and everything. So that's why I was able to get it so good at a high level, because when there's a lot on the line and it's all going through your head, high competition, you know, the walls close in. You know, sometimes you have no choice to tap, especially when you have the high pressure. You know, in training, when no one's watching, you can like resist any move because no one's watching, you don't care. You know, you don't have any pressure to perform or underperform or whatever. But at a big level stage, even the best of the best, you know, get beaten just because of the pressure, or they can't handle the pressure that's being upon them.
Yeah.
But that prelim, everything was going on. That was happening at prelim was all awesome fights. There was a Mongolian guy on there, can't pronounce his name, but he got this like sweet knockout on this other dude. Yeah, from the prelims to the main card, every fight was freaking awesome.
Yeah. Now I wanted to talk about the fight between Masvidal and Usman. Now, personally, I thought that Kamaru Usman was on point. He was on top of his game, and there was also, everyone was like talking about since the last fight, the idea that was a bit boring because he used shoulder strikes, he was using foot stomps, and was mainly using his wrestling up against the cage. But the issue is like the criticism that when people say that, it's like, well, at the end of the day, the goal is to win. Okay, like pay-per-views, money is one thing, but at the end of the day, the goal is to actually win your fight. And then there's the idea of sacrifice. You're taking that risk over, you know, putting on a very enjoyable fight, but, you know, potentially sustaining the most damage compared to trying to play it at least a little bit safe. But at the end of the day, you're still winning. Now, when he took that and completely flipped it on its head, yesterday he showed up and he put on a absolute spectacular display performance. And when he knocked down Masvidal, I was absolutely stunned. I did not see it coming. Knocked him out completely on his feet. And then I just wanted to get, what were your thoughts on that fight in terms of Kamaru and Masvidal's performance?
Oh, it was freaking amazing what those two guys did. You know, both guys were taking shots. Both guys were, you know, egging each other on to give their best. But leading up to that fight, I think pretty sure Masvidal was the favorite to win that fight, and everyone said that the only way that Kamaru could probably beat George Masvidal was through his wrestling and take him down, you know, hit him on the ground, get him against the cage. Everyone thought that would be Kamaru's strategy, because Kamaru is like an amazing wrestler, world-class freestyle wrestling. If you follow Kamaru on Instagram, most of the time he posts his training is mostly him just wrestling, just taking guys down, scrambles and wrestling. But what we saw Kamaru do through the striking was unbelievable, especially that knockout highlight reel that he did to George was pretty much something that we'll probably see get played again and again. Because when he hit him with that read, you saw the sweats and the spit pretty much shit off Masvidal. It was like a movie. You see the water, it was literally like a movie. The way how he did it, and then to keep hitting on the ground. So it was freaking unbelievable what Kamaru did, and everyone's saying that he's probably the pound for pound best fighter in the UFC, maybe in the world right now. But yeah, a lot of people say that he's a boring fighter and that he's not the most exciting to watch. But this week, I think it's pretty exciting. He's winning fights. He's improving every fight that he does. Every fight he does, he's improving more and more and more. But then again, they said the same about George St. Pierre. People said that he was a boring fighter, but then again, he's pretty much regarded as one of the greatest of all time. But yeah, just a really good performance, and he just looks pretty much unstoppable right now. I can't think of any other person that can really beat is at the moment right now, I'll give him a close match, but he looks pretty untouchable, especially that performance that he gave against Jorge Masvidal, who's only been knocked out once previous to that match.
Yeah, I understood. Now, before we move on, I just wanted to get your your opinion, like, or prediction. We're always in UFC. We're always talking about who we're going to fight next, who's going to fight next. Now, it's been said that Kamaru Usman will have a rematch with Colby Covington next. Obviously, now that Colby Covington's on a bit of a resurgence. But I wanted to know, who do you think Masvidal should fight next if he was to return?
I think everyone wants Masvidal to do that rematch with Nate Diaz. That's what everyone's talking about. Or because he's obviously on a loss now. They want his from what I hear, they want his Nate's brother, Nick Diaz, to have his comeback fight against Jorge Masvidal. That's the one that everyone wants to see. And they're both pretty evenly matched. Nick Diaz will always be a top level fighter, no matter what his age is or what promotion he's fighting under. But I think that's the fight that I think everyone would really want to see is Nick Diaz versus Jorge Masvidal. And I wouldn't be surprised if they match that up.
Definitely, sure about that. Now, moving on, and I wanted to come back to your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu career. Now, in all your time practicing and all that, and then perfecting your craft, what would you say was the biggest challenge for you?
The biggest challenge for me, not just for me, but for anyone that does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, has been training, whether they've been training for a short time or training for a long time, is not comparing yourselves to others. I could be a blue belt, I could be a pro belt, I could be a black belt, or someone else could be a blue belt, pro belt, black belt, white belt. And there's always that lingering feeling of comparing yourself to others on the mat, whether they're in the same gym or another gym, or you're seeing someone else train jiu-jitsu just for your Instagram posts. And that's the hardest thing to do in any sport, any martial arts, is try to not let that damp sink in of comparing yourself to others. Whether comparing, he's won more tournaments than me, or they beat me today, or I'm going to tax this guy out, or this person does this move a lot better than me, this person has a more successful school than me. And that's really the hardest thing when it comes to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, is not letting yourself be or comparing yourself to others. Doing Jiu-Jitsu is easy. Rock up in training, doing the class, drilling moves, rolling or finishing the 5-minute rounds in a roll. That's easy, because that can be done. But the mental game of making sure that you're make sure that you focus on yourself and not focusing on someone else's progress. That's the hardest thing to do, I believe. And I get that sometimes. I'll see another brown belt. You might get the better of me doing the rolls during class or during the gym, or I see them compete and they're doing really well. I'm like, oh man, if I compete against them, I'll get smashed, or I can never roll the way they do or perform the moves they do. But you always got to come back to what is the context of what I'm training for and what I want to do. That's what I think the hardest thing is in my journey, is to make sure that I don't compare myself to others and compare my journey to another person, because everyone is on a different path, and everyone should respect the path that each person is taking in their journey with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and with fitness in general. Same thing with fitness. You can't compare your journey with fitness compared to someone else, because what they will eat and drink and what they will train will work different to them compared to what will work with you. Hold on, you muted yourself. Sound, dude.
There we go. Sorry. There we go. Sorry, apologies. That was a very, very fair point. It's just there's a little bit of commotion going on in my background, so I just wanted to unmute myself so it doesn't disturb you. Anyway, as I was saying, that's a very strong point to put. Now, the biggest the biggest lesson or the obstacle I've come through this, even though I've just started, is just try and be as patient as you can. When it comes to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and when you're sparring with someone, the people tell me they get a lot of people who are very tense. They try to muscle it too much. Now, for someone who I had a mistake. I thought, if I go into BJJ, because I thought I'm a pretty average, strong guy, I would be able to do okay. But that's not the case at all. And a lot of times, guys get very, very tense when they're trying to start, and then they need to understand, they need to be calm, and they need to move more, and they need to slow down, they need to learn to breathe, because I feel like when you're trying to muscle it too much, that's when you waste the most energy. So that was definitely my lesson. Now, next up, I wanted to bring up, I couldn't help but notice, but you got a photo just right behind you. Can you tell us the story behind this photo? Who is this? Yeah, that one? Yeah, tell us the story behind this.
Are you a fan of Power Rangers?
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, well, this here is none other than the greatest Power Ranger of all time, Jason David.
No way.
The Green Ranger, the
No.
Ranger, the Black Ranger, the Red Ranger.
No way.
That's like one of my famous photos for the study, the original Power Ranger himself, JDF.
No way. He's also a legitimate MMA fighter. He's actually he's had a pretty successful record.
I think in MMA, he's actually technically unbeaten. He's got like a 4-0 record in like amateur professional MMA or something like that. But he can legit throw down, 4-0, even if it's amateur leagues, it's still pretty impressive. And you can see his fights, they're on YouTube. You can see his MMA fights on YouTube.
He's actually had a couple of really good bouts. Like, I actually was a massive fan of that dude growing up. Like, when he was the green Power Ranger, and then he lost his powers, and then he became the White Power Ranger, and then he came back for all these like different seasons, and then hell, he even came back for that giant like Power Rangers movie that they did. Holy shit, man! Well, listen, he
did a cameo with Kimberly. Yeah, he did a cameo with Kimberly, the Pink Ranger. They got her in as well. He's awesome. I think he pretty much inspired every kid in the 90s to grow their hair. Like, his hair in the 90s was just luscious. Every kid wanted to have long hair like Jason when they were watching the Power Rangers. He just looked sick, because when you see the guys like him and Anthony Kiedis, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, having this long, luscious hair, you wanted that hair as well. But no, I looked back at Comic-Con, I think maybe 5 years ago when he was here.
Yeah.
And I went to that Comic-Con specifically because I found out he was going to be there. I was like, yeah, I'm getting a ticket. I'm going to go see JDF.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, unscripted question, man. What was your favorite Power Rangers series?
Definitely not the original one when they had the original cast, but probably the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers when they had the second crew come in, when they had Rocky and Adam and Aisha. Yeah. So not the cast had after the original. That was good. And after Mighty Morphins, you can't go wrong with Power Rangers in Space and Power Rangers Time Force.
Yes.
Those were 6 series, and they had really sick intros.
That was correct, man. I agree with you. My favorite series was definitely Power Rangers Time Force. Really, you just. That was sick. I think some of the character development in that show was so good, man. Not even that, but like I think that was one of the first Power Rangers. Was it Power Rangers? TV series that I watched. But one of the reasons why I liked it was because of the Dino Red Ranger. How he was like the he's kind of like an anti-hero in a way, because he wasn't afraid to, he was like one of the first Rangers that wasn't afraid to kill, you know what I mean? And he wasn't afraid to like do what he could. But even though he would butt heads with the original Red Ranger, and I thought that was just such a good story line in general. Anyway,
I could put all the DVDs and everything.
I don't really, obviously, I can't remember what it's up to right now, but I'm aware that it's still going, and good for them. Good for them. Anyway, so
I think it's a Ninja series.
Trust me, those guys, they'll go on forever. They will. What was I going to say? So, coming back to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now. What do you believe is the best thing? So speaking of Perth specifically, what do you think the best thing is for BJJ to grow right now in the state of Perth?
I think right now is probably encouraging more people, like everyday people, to try it. Because especially with Jitsu, when you first see it, if you're watching Jitsu, it's like, what are they doing? I don't get it. Looks boring to watch. But once you actually do it and try it for yourself, it's like one of the most funnest things to watch. And I think for it to really grow is to really expand it, especially in the Perth fitness scene, is just giving it more exposure and more people to openly say that they're training it and they're doing it. A cool trick that I'm going to share on my own personal account in the future is if you're training jiu-jitsu right now and you're putting up posts of your training, you know how you put in hashtags that are relevant to what you're posting up? You know, people will hashtag up Brazilian Jujitsu, BJJ, blah, 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 blah. But here's a cool trick. If you want to make Perth Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu grow in the Perth fitness scene, instead of hashtagging Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or BJJ, hashtags stuff like Perth Fitness, Perth Fit Fam, Perth CrossFit. So that way, when people are scrolling through the Instagram feed and the Instagram hashtag handles that they're following pops up, they'll see people doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and seeing it and being more exposed to it. And that's a cool trick that people can do on their own personal Instagram accounts is hashtagging stuff that has to do with Perth, stuff like Perth Fitness, Perth Fit Life. If you can hashtag that in your posts while you're putting up a photo of you training Jiu-Jitsu, more everyday people, more everyday fitness Perth people will see the hashtag, they'll come up with their feed, and they'll see Jiu-Jitsu more and more on their phone, on the Instagram, and then eventually, once someone sees something enough, they will think about it, and not only will they think about it, they will be open to the chance of maybe finding a gym and training it. You know, it's like that's how basically how phones work and marketing works. The more if you Google something in your Google search, 100% you'll see that Google search or the ad about what you Googled on your Facebook ad or your Instagram ad. You know, it's just scrolling through a day or two later. You know, I Googled the other day bath soap. Next thing you know, I'm scrolling from Instagram and Facebook and I'm seeing bath soap ads pop up on my feed.
Yeah, it's a strange thing that social media does that.
Yeah, it reads what you're searching. That's how the algorithm works. It's crazy.
I know that's definitely true because have you seen that documentary called what is it, The Social Dilemma?
Yeah, I heard about that. Yeah. I've seen a bit of it.
Yeah, they talked about that a lot. How your phones, like all those social media apps, are constantly tracking what you're searching, and yeah, that's actually I actually do remember that's the same for me because now that I'm all about following fight news and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
If I were to go onto my personal Instagram page, it would be a lot of fitness-based stuff.
Yeah.
Like this trainer, this program, that trainer because I'm a personal trainer. However, if I go over to my Last Set podcast.
Oh, still on? You're frozen there. You're frozen up on me.
Okay, apologies about that. We were just cut out due to some technical difficulties, but now we're back. Anyway, so the next point I wanted to bring up to you is in terms of the BJJ world, now that we've got more competitors than ever, I wanted to ask you personally, what was your favorite ever match between either two grapplers or two fighters?
That would have to be, there's a really famous match that happened in ADCC a few years ago. So ADCC is pretty much the biggest grappling tournament, most prestigious grappling tournament you can do, especially in no-gi, because it's the whole tournament is done in no-gi. And one of the greatest matches of all time in that tournament, I can't remember which year it was a match between two guys. It was between Kron Gracie and Gary Tonin.
Okay.
So Gary Tonin right now is one of the biggest names in no-gi grappling. Everyone knows Gary Tonin. I think he's currently undefeated in MMA right now. And Kron Gracie is one of the greatest jiu-jitsu competitors of his generation. Real top-level guy. He is the son of Rickson Gracie. And Rickson Gracie is regarded as the greatest jiu-jitsu athlete of all time in his generation. So you've got the son of the greatest of all time against Gary Tonin, who was at then one of the most promising up-and-coming guys in the scene. And everyone was going to say that Gary Tonin was going to be the next best thing, who was going to be one of the biggest stars in the sport. And they were right. He still is one of the biggest stars and one of the biggest draws in the sport. So they fought in ADCC a few years ago. And this is back when no one really knew who Gary Tonin really was. So the match starts off, and it's even and even. Hicks and Grace is watching. Kron's dad is watching. Everyone thought that Kron was just going to slice through this guy, beat him the first round, beat him in under 2 minutes. But they go for basically the whole round to the point where Gary Tonin was actually pretty much beating Kron. So Gary Tonin is pretty much beating Kron Gracie. Kron Gracie out of nowhere puts on this crazy armbar on Gary Tonin. He's twisting it, moving it. Gary Tonin is spinning around, and for whatever reason, whatever happened that day, somehow Gary Tonin did not tap to that armbar, and he got out of that armbar. And if the timer were to run out, Gary Tonin would have won that match by points, I think. And then there's a famous video of Kron Gracie explaining the match, and he goes, "Oh, I'm losing the match." Then all I hear is my dad saying, "You've got 10 seconds left," and in that last 10 seconds, somehow Kron Gracie, from being on his back, gets to Gary Tonin, gets Gary Tonin's back and sinks in a rear neck and choke and gets Gary Tonin to tap within like the last 2 seconds of the match and making Kron Gracie the winner of that match. That's one of the greatest matches of all time. There's a famous video on YouTube called Eddie Bravo. Eddie Bravo, one of the most well-known guys in the scene, and he talks about that was his favorite grappling match of all time. If you just listen to YouTube, Gary Tonin favorite ever match, you will come up with him talking about and reacting to that match between Kron Gracie and Gary Tonin.
Wow. So that's
definitely my favorite one.
Yeah, your favorite one. So
yeah,
that
was
your favorite.
To watch. Yeah.
What is your dream matchup then?
I think for me, anything will get Kron Gracie is always a great match because I love Kron Gracie. If I had to go in the current scene right now with currently who's big, I think we all understand that we all want to see Gordon Ryan against Andre Galvao.
Yeah.
They're the two big names that everyone wants to happen because, Andre Galvao is one of the greatest of all time, record-wise. You got Gordon Ryan, he's pretty much the greatest of all time right now. I don't think they've ever versed each other, but that's the one that everyone wants to see. The bad blood between them. Both of them are guys are a similar weight class, both jacked, big dudes. Yeah. And it'll just be a really exciting match to see because those two guys really are the best at what they do.
Why is it that you
I'd pay to watch that as well, easily.
Yeah, definitely. Me too. Well, now, you mentioned that you don't think it's going to happen. Why do you believe that's the case?
Actually, did I say I don't think it's going to happen? I reckon it could happen easily. It's just Andre Galvao. He just had to say yes, basically. Because he's been Gordon Ryan's been trying to get a match with Andre Galvao for years and years and years. He's put as much money into it, saying we'll do it for charity, blah, 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 blah. For some, we'll do it under his rule sets, blah, 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 blah. But for some reason, all the years, Andre has never accepted the match or pulled through the match. So, I don't know, maybe, we don't know if it's a money kind of thing or a rule set kind of thing. So it really comes down to what Andre Galvao wants to do. Maybe he'll do the match if enough people egg him on and peer pressure him to do it, then maybe he'll do it. But that's the match that we all want to see. I think the Perth Jiu-Jitsu community, the worldwide Jiu-Jitsu community deserve to see as well. Gordon Ryan versus Andre Galvao.
Yeah, because ever since the slap, things are just kind of just like left there. And, it needs to be settled. That's all I could say. It needs to be settled. Now, moving on to you and your platforms. Now, where can my viewers find you and Coffee and Chokes?
So basically, you can watch all my podcasts for free if you simply just follow my Instagram account. So my Instagram name, if you edit this later today, it's under here. It's basically my name, Mil_Vac BJJ. So MIL_VAC. Awesome. My name is Jamil. Mil's a shortened version of it. So Mil_Vac BJJ. Vac being my last name, and you can watch all the videos via my Instagram account. I post it all on my feeds, so you can just go to my account, check out what I posted, and all the videos are there. Or if they want to see a more neater and collated view of where all the podcasts are, you can go to my website. It's www.buymeacoffee youtube.com/coffeeandchokes.com, where
Awesome.
you can see all the videos in a more of a easier way to pick and choose of what the latest releases are. But yeah, it's all via Instagram. So if you have an Instagram account or you're watching this via Instagram, just add me, follow me, Mil_Vac BJJ, and all the podcasts and content is all there ready for you to view for free.
Awesome. What I'll do is you send me the links, man, and I'll definitely put it in this video for you so people can find you. Now, this last little section of the podcast I just wanted to talk about is, podcasting itself. Now, you've been doing Coffee and Chokes for just about a year now, you said?
Yep, a year and a bit, I'd say.
Yeah. Now, what's a goal that what's some of the goals that you set yourself podcasting wise for this year?
I think for me, I've had most of the majority of big name guests from the Perth community. I've had some big names from Perth, but the goal really is now to branch off worldwide. If I can get some really big, famous or well-known names outside of Australia, like some of the big names, especially in America right now. Just let's say if I can get guys like Andre Gaval or Gary Tonin, or even one of John Danaher's guys, on my podcast, that would be sick. That's my end goal, to really get like a worldwide guest, not just to say that I managed to get that guy or that big name or just to earn clout, but really just so that that big name can impart some wisdom and knowledge specifically to the Perth community. So I can ask, let's say, John Danaher, what do you think that a state like Perth needs to do to make our BJJ scene bigger and better? What do we have to do, John? And if he can give some wisdom facility from him down to the Perth scene, that would be sick. And that is the number one end goal that I want to do with the Coffee and Chokes podcast, and also giving more opportunities to small businesses out there to sponsor and endorse podcasts. Usually every podcast I sponsor by Humble Fightwear, but I'll also find if I can get a guest to guest endorse or guest sponsor the podcast. So basically, let's say there's a coffee shop around the corner, like, hey, can I use your name and logo and put it on my podcast? And I'll write down or include what promos or what specials you're doing right now. And they'll be like, oh, sweet. And they'll give them a chance to advertise their business as well. And I usually get a little incentive out of it as well, that I usually speak to with them, and we organize what's the incentive that I get out of it as well. So just give Perth an opportunity to get more knowledge from worldwide guests, and also for other small businesses to have the opportunity to advertise on my podcast as well, to help their business grow as well.
Awesome. Now that's good to hear, man. Now, just before I let you go, man, now we talked about the podcast. We talked about what you want to get out of it. Now, I want to ask you personally yourself, like, what are some personal goals you've set for yourself, whenever it's business wise or BJJ wise? What are some personal goals you set for yourself this year?
I think martial arts and grappling wise, I definitely want to compete around winter in a wrestling tournament, freestyle wrestling. Do one BJJ tournament this year. It'd either be most likely the SGT or the next coming AGT, Australian Grappling Tournaments, when they come back this year. So compete in both disciplines. And personal wise, probably expand the podcast, and also find a way to advertise it on more platforms, advertise it on different websites, and also monetize it as well, to put more money into my podcast as well. Because just like with tournaments, without money, you can't grow. So if I can find a way to get a little bit of more dosh into the podcast, I can get better equipment, better lighting, and also to reward myself for the hard work that us podcasters do in editing and chasing guests as well. That would be nice as well. Because I really want to, especially with podcasters, I believe that for podcasts to grow is to put money into it, just like with tournaments. And I really want to make it a trend to make it normal for people to pay for podcasts as well, or to give financial rewards for podcasters. Podcasts, they put a lot of effort in editing what we do and chasing guests, making content. So I truly believe that it's deserving that we also get rewarded as well for the work that we put in to give content out there, usually for free. So if someone wants to chip in $10, $20, $5, I'm cool with that. Just as a little thank you of appreciation that they've enjoyed the content that we give. And that's my goal, is to start that trend up here in Perth and to make it okay for people to, or make it normal that, you know, podcasts and money go hand in hand, and it shouldn't be a thing to be frowned upon or discouraged.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that, because I've only been doing this with my mate now since, we do it roughly since August, July, June last year. So we're coming up, will be a full year in a few months. So we actually understand, like, the thing is with podcasts, man, is it's completely self-funded. You don't make any money off it for quite some time. And I feel like that's just the real grind of it, because you're working so hard for something now, and you always want to talk about better. And then it's the idea, you know, for this podcast to go to make money, you got to spend money. So you know, getting to advertising, and then like learning, it's a real skill in its own, because now you got to learn to edit. I had no idea how to use Adobe until I started doing this. I knew nothing about cameras, microphones, any of that stuff before we started. But what I tell everyone is, just don't be afraid to start, like, regardless of what your equipment is, what computer you have, how many followers you got. Just make sure you get started, and then over time you're going to learn. Over time you're going to get guests. Really, and that's the one thing I tell everyone, is just be patient. You know, it takes years and years to become an overnight success. So that's the main thing I tell. So for me, it's just, you know, hopefully step up. One thing personally I love for myself is to get a little studio or get a little apartment. But right now in Perth, the rental market is absolutely atrocious.
I know, $250 for a space, you know, and that's a cheap one. You'd be spending $250. And funny thing is, there's not even a bedroom. The bedroom is like the kitchen.
I see them
on domains, you know, it's like $250. Oh, that's a cheap deal. You have a look at the photos, and basically the bedroom, there's no separation between your bed and where the kitchen living room is. I was like, can't live like that. But it's ridiculous. But I know what you mean.
And eventually we'll get there. And eventually, man, like, when it becomes the next part I've got to get through is like having in-person podcasts rather than just, you know, constantly over Zoom. But again, that's all down the line. Now I just want to say, man, that's all the time I've got for you. Unfortunately, I've got to get on to the next round of work that I've got to do. But man, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time. Now, if you could just do me a favor, could you just send me your links, send me a couple of videos, send me a couple of photos to put for the thumbnail, and then all good, man. I'll let you know when everything's up.
I appreciate it, Joe. Thank you so much for having me on. Appreciate it, man. Thanks,
problem,
Joe.
Man. And I'll see you around, okay? All the best.
I'll see you around. I'll see you at the gym. I'll see you at UFC. All good.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course,
See you later, man.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye. Yeah.